So my big thing was on Saturday, I took myself off to the Kakuma Refugee Camp, which is in Kakuma. In the morning I met up with Philip Ogola, Telga Larupe, and the Star's cartoonist Victor Ndula. Posted this photograph as we got on the plane. And my piece over the weekend was about this visit. Raouf Mazou of UNHCR, who is a friend and deep thinker, as always subtly jolted the way I looked at things. And whilst I was visiting London, I received a media invite to visit the Kakuma Refugee Camp for a TEDx event. The starring cast featured the mesmerizing slam poet Emi Mahmoud, Mary Maker, 24-year-old filmmaker Amina Ruimo from the Congo, Georgina Goodwin, the photographer, who says she's making the invisible people visible, Apurva Sanghi, the World Bank economist who worked on a report about this camp from a refugee-nomics perspective. Yes, in my backyard, playing on the word NIMBY, not in my backyard. The economics of refugees and their social dynamics in Kakuma. Governor Nanok, who is quite cerebral and controlled, the hijabi supermodel Halima Aden, and so many more. The flight took 90 minutes from Wilson Airport, which is a magic portal into so many other worlds. And as we drove through the town to the camp and I looked out at the passing landscape, it was green. You could see the residue left by the flash floods, and dotting the landscape tall, angular figures and lots of children, none of whom had their hand out, none. To Kenya's credit, and the likes of UNHCR, which has done the heavy lifting, Kenya is the second largest refugee-hosting country in Africa. 500,000 registered refugees hosted by Kenya, 32% are housed in the Kakuma refugee camp, 57% in Dadaab refugee settlement, and 11% in Nairobi. Kakuma refugee camp is located in Turkana County and is at the crossroads of Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Uganda, and is home to 190,822 refugees, with South Sudanese making up the majority, 52% of the camp's population. The camp is also home to refugees from Somalia, Ethiopia, Burundi, Rwanda, and the DR Congo. Since its establishment in 1992, Kakuma has hosted one of the longest-lasting refugee camps in the world. Kakuma camp was founded when in 1991 some 10,000 Sudanese boys walked into northern Kenya. Having first fled civil war in southern Sudan, undertaking a treacherous journey to Ethiopia, war once again forced them to seek refuge elsewhere. They had walked more than 1,000 miles before reaching Kenya, and Kakuma refugee camp would become their new home. Last week I learned that 1 out of every 100 of us is a refugee, and displacement worldwide is at an all-time high. Kathleen Johnston said, "The only real power in this world is the ability to control the dominant narrative about what's going on. In the West, the refugee narrative has been weaponized, and the consequences of that weaponization is there for all to see." Note Nigel Farage and his Brexit advert with an endless line of refugees queuing to enter Britain. Note the resurgence of the far right. Note Orban and his language of existential threat by the Islamic hordes. The linguistics around refugees has become as much of a rat-a-tat machine gun as it was for many of those folks who were forced to flee at the point of a gun. Interestingly, Mr. Octopizzo identified this linguistic straitjacket and sought to break it with the characterization of his intervention as Refugenius Project, and there was plenty of Refugenius at Saturday's TEDx event. As you probably know, Turkana County is in the bottom percentile when it comes to most economic indicators, though excitement has built over the recent oil finds and even aquifer discoveries. And this is taking me to another observation. It seems to me where the disparity between the host community, and a refugee community is at its narrowest, the net add is a lot easier to absorb. It actually produces a measurable net positive gain, according to the Yes in My Backyard report. The gross regional product of the Turkana region increased permanently by 3.4% as a result of the refugee presence. Importantly, this increase is permanent. The effect on overall employment is also positive. Total employment increased by 2.9%. And finally, in per capita terms, though the magnitude is not big, the GRI per local person in Turkana also increases by 0.5%. These results put together suggest the refugee presence has a beneficial impact on Turkana's economy. The report measures the Kakuma economy at $56 million and therefore concludes refugees have created more boom than gloom. I did not see many adult refugee males. I saw many mothers and sub-adult children. I heard Thibaut Rollet of Safaricom describe how they dropped in some super base station from the sky for the weekend into this most remote part of the world, and I thought to myself, just network these folks and see what happens. I would be a big buyer of that $56 million GDP number. I'm grateful to UNHCR for taking me to visit a part of Kenya. I'd flown over at 35,000 feet, but never set foot in. It was an eye-opener. And most of all, if it's resilience and a never-say-die attitude you're after, it's right here under our noses. So it was very good to see Rauf Mazou, who's a friend, at this event. Reuters have written a great article, Poets and Models star at world's first refugee camp TEDx event in Kenya. Refugees turned poets, filmmakers, models and teachers sought to shatter stereotypes and inspire a global audience on Saturday by sharing their stories of perseverance through suffering. The world's first TEDx event to be hosted in a refugee camp. Speakers included activist Ria William Uyada, athlete Poor BL, and teacher Mary Nirak Maker from South Sudan, Congolese filmmaker Amina Rubino, and Sudanese poet Emi Mahmoud. Somali American Halima Aydin, international fashion model, also featured. I want you to remember that although the children here are refugees, they are children, Aydin said. They deserve every opportunity to flourish, to hope, to dream, to be successful, she added. My story began here in Kakuma Refugee Camp, a place of hope. There are 2,000 businesses in and around the camp. This is a photograph of Governor Nanok, who I described as cerebral. The report, Yes in My Backyard, The Economics of Refugees and Their Social Dynamics in Kakuma, Kenya,